Welcome to the podcast from the Fabian Society's lecture with David Lammy on Lessons from America. This lecture took place on the 30th of June 2008 in Westminister.
It's under the theme of the world after Bush. I know a sad prospect for you all, but one we'll have to come to terms with by January. Also, we think a moment for thinking about what we want to see, what progressive approaches we want to see to international politics. But we also think there are very important domestic political questions to be asked about what's happening in the United States, and that's the focus of our event this evening, which David Lammy is going to lead.
My view is that we are seeing a new way of doing politics in America that has the seeds of some real changes in Britain too, and I draw three big lessons. The first is an issue about who does politics. Putting their unique personal stories aside, the significant thing about both McCain and Obama is that they both come from outside the political establishment. They both represent a reaction to the political language and the methods that have come to dominate politics since the 1990s. John McCain has styled himself against the Washington elite. His political career has been founded on maintaining an outsider's perspective on Washington and the way it relates to people, whether that's in campaign reform or his famous town hall meetings. In a similar way, Obama makes a virtue of his recent arrival on the national stage, something people once regarded as a weakness. In many ways, he has run against Washington at the same time as running for it. While Clinton's candidacy was based on her ability to understand the rules of the political game, Barack has promised to change them in the way he raised money, the way he campaigned, the way he brought new people into the political process. And there's something about these two outsider candidates that connects with people, whether it's with rural communities in Iowa, casino workers in Nevada, or students in Wisconsin. So we need people who have different experience to bring to bear on problems. Over the last few years, there have been more attempts, of course, to draw on the views of people from outside of the Westminster bubble, including new forms of public consultation. But the real breakthrough will come when Westminster itself looks, feels, and just works differently as well. So the first lesson I draw from America, but also from the events of this year, is that we need to find ways to break open politics beyond the usual suspects. And if the first lesson emerging from the US is that opening up of the political class, I think the second is the question of political strategy. Because the lesson of the last year is that the political messages and methods of the 1990s are beginning to look very tired and out of date. What's striking about both of the nominees in the US is their refusal to be bound by artificial ideas about how to determine their policies. McCain champions immigration reform, despite his party's hostility to it. He pushes the Republicans on climate change, despite the skepticism of the American right about the existence of climate change at all, let alone its ability to stop it. And for the Democrats, Obama says that he's prepared to open up a dialogue with Iran, something that many candidates would not be prepared to say, even if they believed it was the right idea in theory. Now, in most presidential elections, it would be very unlikely to have one candidate taking what looks like big risks. Yet here we have two candidates doing just that. And the truth is that the public is gravitating towards two candidates who show less interest than the others in the politics of calculation. Of course that still goes on and probably always will do, but something important is happening. Here we have two nominees who define their politics against the challenges they face: climate change, mass migration, the war-torn Middle East, not the old adages about tough on national security, Democrats with no-go areas for Republicans. Yet over the last decade, both New Labour and the New Democrats got into the habit of defining themselves through what they were against rather than what they were for. Not the old left, not the new right, but New Labour was the formula. Some of what was political pragmatism, we understand that, and some of it was a genuine search for new ideas after the lows of the 1980s. But the use of triangulation, of defining yourself against your own party, of a managerial language which drains the values from policy, also became a habit, a reflex, which alienated people in the party and left the public disorientated. For many people, the good things that we are doing sound more like a list of bullet points rather than a mission to change society. So they switch off, or worse, become alienated from a party that looks like it's become part of the establishment. So in 2008, we need to be much clearer about the kind of society that we want to create. The narrative of the last 10 years, a strong economy, a strong public services, needs another ingredient, and that is a good society. And if we need new people doing politics and new ways of creating policy, then we also need to learn a third lesson from the US. We need to reinvent the way we create political movements. Look at the race in the United States. And of course there are soaring speeches and slick adverts. But there's much more here than meets the eye. The way the race has been funded has rewritten the rulebook. Every 4 years, the world watches the candidates' court, the big financial donors in the party. It watches as they deal with powerful interest groups. But now it shakes its head in disbelief that nearly 1.5 million individuals have contributed to Barack Obama's campaign. Some 47% of his campaign money has come from donations smaller than $200. This turns politics on its head. Rather than feeling shut out, people feel they have a stake in the campaign. But just think what this could mean for us here in Britain. If every Labour member gave just £10, the party would raise £2 million. What a contrast that would be with the Ashcroft bankrolling the Tories into the next election. So the fundraising has been different, but that is just the beginning. Because the Obama campaign has committed resources into grassroots organisations, spurring countless young people to take part in politics for the first time. It's put together a web strategy premised on connecting activists and supporters to one another, not just pushing out tightly controlled messages from the campaign HQ. Suddenly, in the United States, the web is being used to connect people with politics again, at a time when people are using it to circumvent politics in the UK. And the huge lesson for us is that the technology is neither particularly complicated nor especially expensive or labour intensive to run. At the moment, any discussion looks like dissent. So the result here is a blogosphere that is effectively dominated by the right, not enriched by the left. And when people are asked to take part, it's in the technical detail of policy, not in the bigger questions about the kind of world that we all want to live in. The point is that both the Democrats and the Republicans in the US are getting the basic principles of campaigning and creating a political movement right. To borrow a phrase from the Move On campaign, a political movement should have low floors and high ceilings. So on the one hand, the Obama campaign has actually lowered the barriers to entry into politics. Just last weekend, his Unite for Change movement urged supporters to log onto his website, type in their zip code and find an event near them.